All right. After a victory against the Cleveland Browns, we now have one of the harder challenges in a few weeks. The Eagles. The Eagles are winners of 9 straight games, though they do have a little bit of drama going on right now. Um, where, according to what's being said and reported and all that, and some stuff's taken out of context or isn't given enough context to properly convey what the person means. So I will say that. But something from Brandon Graham, and unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're a fan of an opposing team, but unfortunately, because you never like to see players get hurt, um, Brandon Graham did suffer a season ending injury some weeks ago. I think tore his pec or his bicep, something like that. So he is out for the year. But he said that Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown used to be really good friends. And maybe he didn't mean it that way. But to say that makes people think, oh, they're not close anymore. They may not like each other anymore. And it's just, hey, we're on the same team. Let's try to win. And we're going to coexist, I guess you could say. And then after the game versus the Panthers, in which the Eagles won, but they struggled, and they've struggled in the first quarter of like every single game basically, because they average 1.4 points in the first quarter. That's bad. That is really, really bad. So, like I said, they did beat. Sorry. Just a notification. They did beat the Panthers, but after the game, the in the locker room, the media asked A.J. Brown, what about the offense needs to be fixed, needs work? And when asked that, players will generally give an answer of, and it's the PC answer basically, of we need to watch the film. You can always get better in all aspects. And, you just kind of give a broad statement. It's once you're in the facility that it's is more truthful, I guess. Or not even truthful, because that's not a lie. You can always get better, and you are going to watch the film. So, you don't lie at all, but there's just an aspect of, like, hey, now we're going to talk about the things you won't talk about to the media. The stuff that's behind closed doors. And that's where you really voice, hey, this is what we really need to fix. And this is what is really wrong and what I wasn't going to say to the media. But A.J. Brown did not do that. He just straight up said in one word, passing. Now, I understand, like, they struggled. You're a wide receiver. Wide receivers, they're divas. Like, we all know they're divas. Not everyone can be Larry Fitzgerald. And I'm sure every now and then Larry Fitzgerald, maybe behind closed doors, had his moments. But when you're a young receiver, let's say I'm going to use him as an example, Jamar Chase, right? Because he has yet to be paid. He is waiting on that big payday. He is. And he's going to get it. He's going to get somewhere between $35 and $40 million a year as a wide receiver, as one of the best, and a strong argument for the best wide receiver in the entire NFL. And he's going to be paid like it. And if the Bengals don't want to do that, if they want to play the game of fifth-year option and, oh, we're just going to tag you and then we'll tag you again. And it's like, okay, you're not going to tag him a third time. Like, you're not. So if the Bengals want to play that game with him, they can. Absolutely. It's within their rights to as an NFL team. But Jamar wants to make sure he gets his catches, he gets his yards, and he definitely has this year. He's basically the best wide receiver in the NFL statistically this season. He's probably going to get the Triple Crown. But with that, a wide receiver who hasn't gotten his big payday yet, it's important for him to get his numbers, because then he can take those to the NFL team or his agent can take those to the NFL team during negotiations, put it on the table. I'll just use this. This I was writing for my fantasy stuff, so I'm just gonna hold it like this. Okay, guys, we have his stats here. Put it on the table. Those were the number one stats in the NFL for wide receivers this past season. Jamar has been patient. He has not made a huge fuss over it. And he deserves to get paid like the best receiver in the NFL. So, but if you show up and he hasn't gotten a lot of the stats, and the guy's going to show up and be like, here's his stats, pay us please, it gives you a little more confidence. And the NFL team can have their own piece of paper and be like, well, these were Jamar's stats. Okay? It is what it is. Stats are right here. And could you turn on film and let's say Jamar Chase had a bad quarterback. He doesn't. He has a very, 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 very good receiver. Or quarterback. He is one of the best in the league. And but imagine if he had a bad one, the guy's inaccurate. Yeah, could you show the team film and be like, here's him beating this corner by 5 yards and this one by 10, and the quarterback's overthrowing or underthrowing and not seeing him and XYZ, and it's like, if he hits him, these are Jamar's actual stats at minimum, assuming no run after catch, But the physical stats are the best way to say, this is what my client has done, to say, pay him. And I know I'm ranting here, and I'm sorry. But a receiver like A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all C.D. Lamb, all of these guys who have already gotten paid, that big payday, that's life-changing money. That's generational wealth. Not to say that, what Jamar Chase has made so far in his career and what he'd make with a fifth-year option, and even 2 franchise tags, that's a lot of money too. But it's not that long-term security. But A.J. Brown has gotten those big paydays. I think he's gotten 2. at least one when he first got to Philly, I think. And he might have gotten a second one. So, um, with him, yeah, he still wants his stats, he still wants his numbers and his targets and yada yada. But for him, it's not a I need this for payday. I need these numbers because I want numbers, and sometimes that's it with receivers too as well. One, you want the numbers just to show the team what you've done for paydays, and other times it's hey, these are your career stats. You play 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, not likely because you're a receiver, but you play 10, 15 years in the NFL. 5 years after you retire, they're going to be looking at your career stats between targets, catches, yards, touchdowns, Pro Bowls, All Pros, yada, 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 yada. And they're going to be, all right, should this guy get a gold jacket? So that's part of it as well. So, but with AJ, you got to handle it in-house. You can't say that to the media because then it looks bad. Same with Brandon Graham. He apologized. He's like, that's my bad. I shouldn't have said that. So there's a little bit of drama going on over there, and we'll see how or if that affects the Eagles in any way. But sorry for ranting. Let's get into Mike Tomlin's press conference.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick synopsis of our last performance. I probably should have mentioned this after the game. In reviewing the tape, man, it just really stood out to me, the collective component of the victory.
Didn't he
it was a team
bring it up?
effort in a lot of ways. Whether it was individuals given an opportunity to step up in expanded roles due to the lack of availability of individuals, or the fact that we made splash plays in really in all three phases, and the complementary component of the splash plays in all three phases. We started slow on offense, and the defense provided a short field in terms of the interception by KB, and then the offense was able to turn that into 7. And our red zone execution has improved since our mini bye and our focus on that. And so it's just good to see some of those things and some of the splash plays or significant plays happening in special teams. The consistency of Boswell, the turnovers in the kicking game, the gunner play, Ben Skoranic's efforts, etc. I just thought that everybody.
Thanks, Kadarius Toney, who also got waived, by the way.
Everyone wanted to be the reason why we're successful. And when you get collectives playing like that, man, that's when you get an opportunity to play really good team football, complement one another, smile in the face of adversity that gets presented in play, and there's always going to be adversity, and the way that you do it oftentimes is just simply complimenting or supporting those others. We started the second half, we gave up a big kickoff beyond the 50, and the defense got real stout right there, and then we were able to get out of that circumstance, for example, without giving up points. And so hopefully we're not only growing in terms of experience, but there's some intangible growth there as you experience those type days as a collective. I know as we continue through this journey and the road gets narrow, that experience is going to be needed to face some of the challenges that we face. Quickly, talking about some health-related things. I'll start first with George and summarize what transpired last weekend and give you a snapshot of what this week looks like. As I mentioned, leading up to the game, he experienced some hamstring discomfort post-practice on Thursday, getting some post-practice work. Felt pretty good on Friday. We decided to exercise a little bit of precaution, worked at him in a limited fashion on Friday, and wanted to save all those bullets for Sunday. Wanted to see what he looked like when he got to the stadium and then make a determination of how many plays we thought would be appropriate to utilize him in. Obviously, if he wasn't going to be a full participant, we wanted to, gear his participation toward weighty passing game moments, if you will. But when we got to the stadium, it was evident that maybe the circumstance was a little bit more significant than we had hoped. And so we made the prudent decision in terms of shutting him down and not allowing a small problem to become a bigger one.
Right.
Post game, man, we had an opportunity to get him an MRI. The injury did show up on MRI.
Surprised they didn't do that
It was a
before.
little bit more significant than what we imagined. And so we're just in the mindset now of just getting him healthy as quickly as we possibly can. There's a potential for this week, but it's an outside chance. If you press me, I'd probably say he's out or could be characterized as doubtful as we sit here. But again, like we always do, we'll go through the normal procedure. We'll let participation be our guide in terms of availability, and then obviously the quality of that participation. Some guys that are probably in a little bit better position from a participation standpoint, Larry Ogunjobi with his groin, and Deshaun Elliott with some hamstring tightness. We'll watch those guys, particularly at the early part of the week, and again, hopefully there's an uptick in their participation and the quality of it as we push forward toward game time. Dante Jackson had some spotty availability in game. He was sick on Sunday, but was able to get through. I don't imagine that he'll be limited. And some other guys got some minor bumps and bruises associated with competition. And so, as we always do, we won't waste a lot of time focusing our energies on those not available to us. We'll appropriately focus our energies on those that are, and how we divide that labor up and how we can best position them to perform and play winning football individually and collectively. Now on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Man, really excited about this one, man. This Pennsylvania State Championship. Excited about representing Whipple in this. I was just
That must be a
joking
Pennsylvania
this morning,
reference.
Man, we could play this game in Breezewood, man. That'd be awesome.
Again,
They're a really good football team. They need no endorsement from me. They're the winners of 9 straight. When you look at the tape, man, you see exactly why. I'll start first on offense. The acquisition of Saquon Barkley has got to be the most significant acquisition in the NFL in 2024.
one of them, but it's definitely up
That's
there.
what the tape looks like. He's been dominant, eye-opening at times, obviously. Highlight real caliber plays, long runs, touchdowns, etc. It starts there for us. If you don't minimize him in some way, you're not even going to position yourself to have a chance to be successful. And so obviously he's got a lot of our attention at the early stages of the week. But he can't have the totality of your attention. I remember the last time we were in the stadium with him, I think it was 2020, and he was playing for the Giants, and I think Daniel Jones was a very young quarterback at that time. We were able to focus a significant amount of our energy on him. We're not afforded that this time around. Jalen Hurts, man, is a top-notch quarterback, decision maker, leader, passer, escape artist. You name it, he's capable of doing it. And so, we have the challenge of working to minimize both guys and making the decisions, schematic decisions associated with what's required to do so. You couple that with dynamic receiving options on the other end of Jalen Hurts' passes in the form of a couple top-notch guys. They've also acquired Dotson from the Commanders. And so, man, they have the type of group that you got to make some real hardcore decisions about working to minimize. And so we're working through that, the strategic component of that. Obviously, you better play well. I've talked about their eligibles, their running back, their quarterback, their receivers, but you can't talk about Philadelphia without talking about their front. They have some of the most dynamic people in football up front. Lane Johnson, being the bell cow of that group. Their offensive line has been stellar for a number of years. They're not talked about enough for obvious reasons. You get an opportunity to talk about the dynamic playmaking of guys like Saquon and see the highlight reel plays like him jumping people backwards, that oftentimes you miss the brilliance of a guy like Landon Dickerson, man, or Lane Johnson. And so we recognize that the game is played up front, that they usually provide the wave that the little men ride. And so we respect that component of what they do and their capabilities in that area as well. On the defensive side of the ball, they got a bunch of young, talented players, a bunch of Georgia guys that I've seen in draft planning over the last several years, ultra talented. They've been talented up front. for a number of years. They play a lot of people, and they invest in those people in terms of talent acquisition. The same can be said about this collective. They do a really good job of mixing in some schematics, man. Vic Fangio is a veteran coordinator who's very multiple in terms of the schematic things that he throws at you. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the second level play. I think when you think about Philly's defense, you think about the talent acquisition up front, the quality playmaking of the young people in the secondary in particular. But when I turned the tape on, man, I saw two inside linebackers that are productive in all areas. They're high volume tacklers. They're very good in underneath defense, be it man or zone. They're opportunistic. They create a lot of turnovers for the group. They're really good blitzers. I just got a lot of respect for that collective of inside linebackers and the quality in which they're playing at this juncture. As I mentioned earlier, they got a couple dynamic young playmakers in the back end, and Mitchell and Cooper. And studied those guys in draft prep, not surprised by the contributions that they're able to provide. Both guys are football players first and cover men second, in that they're very physical for their position. They don't turn down physical confrontation. They display global football awareness that allows them to make plays other than cover people. Cooper has shown a nice knack for screen destruction, for example, a perimeter play, destruction, bubble screens, wide out screens, etc. And so they got a real formidable group. But again, you know, I'm not surprised by that. You're going to have some tangible evidence when you're talking about an NFL collective winning 9 games in a row. We're excited about being in this 5-star matchup this week, and we show our excitement by locking in on our preparation. And so I'm excited about getting started with our players tomorrow morning in that regard. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
When you look at the situation with George, is there a big picture element involved that you know, you want to make sure you're cautious and you don't aggravate the thing?
No, to be honest with you, no. You know, there's enough things that have our attention in the here and now. We've kind of been in that posture all year. I don't imagine that would change. And so we'll see where the week leads us.
A little different. I mean, he didn't practice on Friday, but you were still
He
planning
did.
on him potentially being available.
He did limited work on Friday.
I mean, was it a little different, though, having a full week to prepare for that as that potential?
You mean the strategy component? Certainly. Certainly. You know, if he's limited, and he probably certainly will be limited at the early portions of the week, it'll give guys an opportunity to get extended in-helmet perspective on their prep.
Scotty.
If they are to get expanded roles again this week, certainly.
What does it say about some of the professionalism that was there, that those guys were still able to go out, even though maybe they hadn't planned, like a Scotty Miller?
And I think that's why I'm just so high on the collective.
Mike had a
those guys
bigger
might be
load.
new to us, but they're not new to the National Football League. They're pros, man. They behave that way. Whether you're talking about Scotty Miller or Van Jefferson or Ben Skoranek, for that matter, all guys have been in the NFL, man. And I just think you saw, you know, shades of that in their performance and the consistency of their performance last weekend.
Mike, in terms of his knowledge of the offense and what you've seen from him in a limited time, can Mike Williams be a guy that could step up for you in that role?
No question. I felt like he did. He did last week. As I mentioned last week in this setting, I view it only as a matter of time before his presence gets felt in a more consistent way in stadium. Practice has been like that for a number of weeks, and usually when you see people making plays in practice, it's a precursor to them making plays in stadium. And so George available or not, I expect the overall trajectory of his performance and inclusion in performance to be on the incline.
After halftime, did you guys make any adjustments in the passing game to, now that you had 30 minutes under your feet without George, about how to adjust against Cleveland?
You know, I don't know that we waited until halftime. You know, halftime was an opportunity to solidify some of the in-game adjustments that we were working through in the first half. And so there were no real new discussions at halves, but we did revisit some in-game discussions that we were having in the first half.
When you look at obviously the offense as a whole has drastically improved this season, but I mean, still no touchdowns on opening drives. What do you guys have to do in order to get off to a better start?
We're just going to keep working. You know, we know that we're not defined by the first possession of a football game or the first 15 minutes of a football game, for that matter. Probably more times than not, you're more defined by the last possession of the game or the last 15 minutes. And so, you know, oftentimes we spend a lot of our time and energy in terms of growth and development in those areas. And, you know, we'll keep working in some of the areas that you mentioned.
Mike, you mentioned the Eagles' offensive line. What differences are you seeing from Saquon Barkley running behind this line that maybe you saw his performance with the Giants?
To be honest with you, I didn't see a lot and didn't study a lot in the Giants being an NFC team, and so I'm probably not the appropriate person to ask.
Once every 4 years.
In terms of comparing the two situations for him.
As far as just what you're seeing from him this year with the Eagles?
You know, he's dynamic.
MVP caliber
He
ball.
is. He checks all the boxes in terms of physical talent. He's got top end speed. He can hit the home run, as evidence of the Rams game. He's good in tight space areas. He can get downhill. He can lower his pads and run behind his pads. He's got good lateral abilities. He can make people miss. He's just a really complete player, and obviously been a significant acquisition for them.
Along those lines, this will be a test, obviously, for your rush defense. Last year, I think you finished 19th. This year, top 5. Those improvements, is it as simple as Cam Hayward is back and playing at an all-pro level? Is there more to it than that?
Oh, it's
I
much
haven't
more.
spent any
It's a
time
collective.
digesting this year relative to last year, to be quite honest with you. You know, our goal is to be better in all areas every year. And so, you know, that's where our focus is. But as you mentioned, Cam is available and playing at a high level. We've also acquired Patrick Queen and some other significant players that I think are doing a really awesome job. Deshaun Elliott, I think, is tackling at a high level from a safety position. But in terms of comparing it to last year, I hadn't wasted any time doing so.
Mike, sorry, go ahead.
What's behind, do you think, Cam playing at such a high level at this point in his career? Obviously, I mean, he's kind of built each year when he's healthy, but what does it say about a guy that he's able to do that?
I just think it's, you know, business as usual, to be quite honest with you. When Cam's healthy, he plays the way he plays right now.
You guys didn't win as many short distance situations the first time in Cleveland. This time around, each time you guys ran the ball 3rd and 5 or short, you converted. What did you see an improvement from your offensive line against their front this time around?
It's not always an improvement, to be quite honest with you. Sometimes it's just venue. You're in a road game venue. You're working on salad count. You lose the advantage of beating people to the punch. You work in your venue. You get the benefit of a cadence. And sometimes it just as simple as that.
Played a lot of meaningful football in December and January. What, from his experience, do you want to see translate as you guys kind of get down the stretch here?
You know, I hadn't thought a lot about his experience outside of Pittsburgh, to be honest with you. I didn't want to prejudge him in any way. I've just been enjoying the process of getting to know him and working with him and building new memories and gaining an understanding of what he needs to do in this environment for us. All of us come with something, you know, good experience, baggage, etc. But I've just learned over the years to not spend a lot of time dwelling on some of that and really just give guys an opportunity to find their space in this environment and prosper in this environment. He's done an awesome job of that. Certainly his experience is an asset to him and to us, but it's not something that we spend a great deal of time discussing.
As far as a young trio of offensive linemen, Broderick, Mason, and Zach, how have you seen them grow just lining up together now, a few months now playing together?
I just think there's no shortcut to experience. We've been in some hot circumstances with that young collective, as you mentioned. They face some top-notch people. They're going to face some top-notch people this week. But I think anytime you're successful, man, there's growth in it, and we've thankfully had some success. We faced some challenges, but we've had enough success, man, to keep this group moving and motivated. And obviously I see signs of that growth. You know, they all are capable. That's why we drafted them in the positions that we drafted them. But there's a learning process. There's an adaptation to this environment. And sometimes it's good to go through that with company. And so I would imagine the collective has been an asset to the collective in that regard as well. I know those guys spend a lot of time together, and that community, I'm sure, strengthens them as individuals.
You're getting set to kick off 3 games in 11 days. How do you kind of approach what's to come here?
I'm really just focused on Philadelphia. I don't care what's on the other side of it.
Is Does it affect your approach to practice workload,
You
division
literally
of labor,
just
things
said.
like that, knowing that there's this is the start to a stretch like that?
It may affect it on the other side of Philadelphia, but I have a 7-day cycle this week, and so I'm not going to make the simple complex. We got a task this week. We got a job to do. We got a finite amount of time and materials and talent and manpower, as do they. And so with that in mind, we're going to prepare and focus our energies on winning this game. There's so many variables that could affect the preparation process on the other side of this game, the attrition component and so forth, that it's fruitless and almost a waste of time to get beyond the template component. Certainly I have a calendar and a template, but that does not have my time or attention. The Philadelphia Eagles do.
Mike, you mentioned off the top complementary football. What allows a team to play complementary football?
Playmaking. You know, we can make it out to be something that's mystical, but you need a play, you make a play. You know, we're starting slow on offense. We need to provide them a short field. KB picks a screen off, puts them on a short field. It's playmaking.
Mike, Andy White and a couple others spent some time in Philadelphia. In that vein, do you see similarities in terms of how both organizations are built in the brand of football that you guys both want to play?
To be honest with you, I hadn't asked Andy that. Andy's better positioned to answer that. I'm just, you know, we don't play these guys very often.
Every 4
they got
years.
a finite amount of time. They won 9 games in a row. There's some real meaty, tangible things on a Tuesday that has my attention.
I mean, now
You know,
with the
that might be an
17th
interesting
game, but
conversation over lunch on Friday.
because we played
In terms
2
of some of
years
those
ago.
things.
What have you liked about
Kenny's
James
rookie
Pierre's
year.
play when he's had to replace Dante Jackson, both against Washington and the Browns?
You know, James is a guy that just works extremely hard. He practices hard. He's improved continually since he's been a part of us. That's why we were excited about doing business with him again, to be quite honest with you. And I just think that you create your fortune. Everyone was happy for him to get an opportunity to make that splash play for us because everybody sees the work that he puts in, how selfless he is, what a good teammate he is. And so you're excited for a guy when he gets an opportunity to show his improvements and his capabilities.
Creating his own fortune, has he created a sense of comfort that you didn't feel compelled to move Cam and leave him in the position to be more versatile?
You know, I'm always pretty comfortable. We've got quality depth in the secondary. We've had it all year. And so I don't know that I was uncomfortable at any point regarding our division of labor or the talent at our disposal in the secondary.
Mike, when you guys traded for Mike Williams, you said you didn't know yet if he was the right fit for this offense. Given the sample size that you've seen from him now, do you feel comfortable saying that he is the right fit? What have you seen from him?
Keep watching. Keep watching. Very much in development. Again, as I've mentioned, seen some quality playmaking in practice. I thought last weekend was a significant step in seeing some more, and so let's hope that continues.
Mike, this was the first time you had Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and TJ Watt all back since like week 3. Just what do you see out of that unit?
You know, just continual pressure. We invest a lot in that collective. We added to that collective in terms of Preston Smith as well. And you can't run out of Rushman. The weighty moments oftentimes that we refer to that define games in settings like this are one-dimensional passing circumstances, 3rd down, 2-minute, et cetera, or combinations of multiple situations, 3rd down in a red zone. And so you can't run out of Rushman. I'm glad that we have everyone at our disposal, and I'm excited about watching that collective continue to divide that labor up and let their talent show individually and collectively.
Mike, what is it about Landon Roberts that allows him not only to make the plays in the backfield like he did the other day, but even take on the blockers and blow up plays even if he doesn't?
You know, he's a 9-on-7 linebacker. I laugh often because I remember being at his pro day. Kevin Colbert and I stood in the parking lot at the University of Houston, man, and talked to he and his parents after pro day for about an hour. Because we went down there, on an expedition, if you will, looking at a lot of things and a lot of people, but we were really enamored with this guy's demeanor, his relationship with the game, the way he played the run. We knew that guy was going to be an NFL run-stopping linebacker. And, you know, almost
There
a
we go.
decade later, man, he's got a resume that kind of illustrates that. And so that was our interest in him when we acquired him a year ago, and he's done nothing but prove that. And I'm thankful to have him. He shows up in moments, as you mentioned, that fourth down moment. You know, he made a really significant play in a goal line circumstance against Dallas, man.
That
If we
one fourth down
recover that
call was
ball, man, we
stupid.
might all still be talking about that play. Obviously, it's a big week for him because we play Mr. Barkley. And so saw him in the building earlier. He's watching some tape. He's a professional. He understands his skill set. He understands his role. He's good for team.
Along the offensive line, the secondary, we often hear about the importance of cohesion and experience. You've infused 2 rookies successfully along your O-line. They've done that in the secondary with 2 rookies. Can you speak about how that either shows up for them or for you guys, how those guys have come together quickly and what they've been asked to do?
You know, it's probably indicative of the maturity of the 4 young people that you mentioned, ours and theirs. As I mentioned, I had an opportunity to meet theirs in the draft process. Met Mitchell down in Mobile and interviewed him several times, and went to Iowa and saw Cooper and all of that. And both are mature beyond their years. They got good relationships with the game. They got good football intellect. I think those things could also describe our 2. And I think that's usually the case when a young guy positions himself to be a significant contributor to an NFL outfit. There's a maturity beyond their years, and there's a football intellect there that's probably indicative of some really good training and some natural aptitude.
I'm gonna edit and I'm gonna go to bed.
The youth of Broderick Jones and him overcoming trials, but what have you seen from him, especially the past few weeks, that has shown progress? It looks like he's been a bigger asset in the run game and been more consistent for you guys.
You know, he's working every day to be better. I'm not trying to tell a story. The growth and development continues.
Like both you and the Eagles, those 2 organizations have kind of built this brand of physical football. What excites you the most about the mano-a-mano component in this matchup?
I just like playing good people, particularly this time of year. It doesn't matter to me that it's the Eagles, to be quite honest with you.
See where you're at.
The people that we play are generally nameless, great faces to us. We focus on the things that we need to do, how we divide our labor up, how we play to our strengths, how we minimize our weaknesses. But I do like playing really good people. I think there's growth in it. Obviously, you got to get the job done. But, man, I think there's significant growth in pitting your collective talents and skills versus big-time opponents, and there's certainly that.
Mike, with the number of soft tissue injuries you've had throughout the season, are there any adjustments you make in how you practice or when guys do practice?
Probably
you know,
not.
that is ongoing and continual. You know, but I just think that that's normal business operating procedure. I think if you're going to be good at what we do, you better have a hardcore plan while at the same time being light on your feet to make necessary adjustments. That's why I haven't delved too much into, you know, this 3-game sequence on the other side of Philadelphia, because, you know, there's so many variables involved. It's somewhat a waste of time. I'll do what's required this week for the collective based on the information and the players I have available. I'll do the same thing next week, and really it's the same thing regarding a lack of player availability for whatever reason.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you.
Okay, made some notes. Gonna go over those. I'm gonna edit this thing. I'm gonna go to bed because it's 1:45 and I'm tired. Just falling asleep. Alright, Mike Tomlin. He said he didn't talk about all 3 phases. I feel like he did. I have a note about it. I just don't know if why I would, because I'll even show you guys right here. Mike Tomlin. So Tomlin, week 14 post game, all 3 phases right there. I wrote it down. Been talking about George. That would suck if we don't have him for this game. Like, yeah, you know, you rested him for Cleveland just so you could try to have him for these games. I am surprised that they didn't do an MRI sooner. that they waited until after the game to do one. It's good to hear that Larry O and Deshaun Elliott are in better shape and have a good chance at being available, and everyone else is basically just bumps and bruises. Talking about Dante Jackson and how he said he had an illness. I also heard something that maybe he had like back spasms too. But I was watching Hard Knocks, and Myles Garrett also had quite the cough, so it seemed like he was sick too. Just seems like something was going around this time of year, which it's not a surprise. He didn't talk about this, but I wrote this down, and something he said just made me think about it when he was talking about Jalen Hurts. So I can't remember where I heard this from, but Jalen Hurts really thought he was going to Pittsburgh. That was who he thought was going to draft him. And then, lo and behold, Philadelphia called and drafted him. He also didn't bring this up, but I'm gonna. The number of Georgia players on the field in this game is going to be insane. Whether or not George plays. If George plays, he's obviously another one. But you have Darnell Washington. You have Broderick Jones. And then on the Eagles side, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. There's some corner from Georgia that they drafted, like last year, 2 years ago, something like that. Corner, I know that. But all the guys from Georgia on this game is minimum 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like at least 6. And that's if George doesn't play. If George plays 7, and if this other kid is still on the Eagles, that's 8. You could have 8 guys from Georgia on the team or on the field, which is insane. All we need is Brock Bowers to make a entrance, Cam is Cam. When they were talking about, what's going on, how he's so good this year, is it because Cam's healthy, or how's Cam playing this well? Cam's Cam. He really is. Yeah, he's old, but he is still dominating, and I could not be happier to have him. And when he's talking about, 15 minutes doesn't define you, like the first 15 doesn't define you, the last 15 is more likely to, but just, you got to play 60 minutes as a whole. Play 60 good minutes, and you probably walk out of Lincoln Financial Stadium with a win. He's talking about how he's focused on the Eagles, and it really does seem like everyone is. Like, everyone's focused, everyone's locked in. Like, this is a team. Damian Woody, weeks and weeks ago, talked about the Jets and said, this isn't a team, it's a roster. The Steelers are a team. And, they are just going to continue working. Like, they're focused on the Eagles. Yeah, you got 3 games in 11 days or whatever they said, 10, 11 days. But right now, you got to be focused on the Eagles. And, they were asking, are you going to change? It's like, we won't change it this week because we're playing the Eagles on a Sunday. But, once you go to play Baltimore, because I think it's Baltimore, you play Baltimore on the following Saturday, so then it's almost traded like a Sunday to a Thursday. This is just Saturday to Wednesday, so then you can play the Chiefs on Christmas. So, whether he changes things up then, we'll see. And this was actually just a note. I don't remember where I saw this from. It was somewhere, but I think it was Mike Tomlin. Maybe it was like the Pivot or something. But players will actually not sign with the Steelers because the practices are hard. Legit. Like, they don't want to sign with the Steelers because practice is too hard. I think that was the Pivot. I'm not 100% sure because they had Mike Tomlin on before the season started. But that is all my notes. That is all I got. So, sorry for rambling at the beginning, but if you guys did enjoy this, please do leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.